All right, hello everybody, and welcome to LSR Group 1 here at Bahrain. Of course, we got the opening round here in Season 5. Brand new game, a whole bunch of new drivers to keep an eye on in today's race. So it should be very, very exciting and very, very quick. And of course, just like the actual F1 season, we got the chance to open here in Bahrain under the lights, and should make it very, very interesting as you get driver number 17 joining up. So it should be a very interesting race. Of course, I'm Big and Haddock, definitely going to be here hosting with you today. And of course, right here doing commentary with me is also James. If you want to go ahead and say hi.
Hello, everyone. It's good to finally be back with Group 1 after how long we've been away?
I think about a 2-month absence with no Group 1 action here on LSR, give or take. Of course, we've had our 2 opening races of our other groups of Group C or Group Crossplay, who ran on Friday, as well as Group 2 on yesterday. So I already got a little bit of a preview of what the racing could look like today, and of course got the single qualifying session format, so should be getting underway as Emre Altunas, who actually won in Group 2 yesterday, and that Ferrari just getting his lap started.
Yeah, I think he was here for Group 2 as well, wasn't he? If I am correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Quite quick in Group 2's race, so we'll have to see what he can do here in Group 1 as coming up to turn 4 now.
Seems very calm and comfortable through there. Of course, now through the S's. Of course, you very much want to make sure you don't go too far to the outside, as we do lose IRS McLeod again. Hopefully, him back in. That should be shortly. But of course, then you got the sharp double left-hander of turns number 9 and 10. Very easy to lock up the tires and go just a little bit too wide there. Of course, then got the second of 2 DRS straights, and of course coming into turn number 11 and 12 now.
Very much is coming up, I want to say turn 14, I think this is turn 14 if I'm correct.
I believe so, because I'm pretty sure the last 2 are technically 15. Actually, no, it's this is turns 14 and 15. Of course, Emre coming out onto the pit straight to set a lap, and it's a 1:29.4 from the Ferrari reserve driver. The Aston Martin behind him of Jinx goes well clear of that with a 1:28.8. One of the Mercedes is coming up behind him. That is Ickel, 1:28.436, so another 4/10 clear. So Mercedes at the moment on top.
Sabi coming across the line now, goes P2 with a 28.7. So
that's on mediums as well.
Yeah,
that's on mediums as well, so very quick. Yeah, so he's taking that first lap on medium, so very quick there from Sabi. As actually it's Batham, the reigning Group 1 champion here in LSR, taking it to the top for Williams. It's a 1:28.264. As Tails and the Red Bull goes ahead and steals that away. So in a similar way to how we've seen Red Bull on top for a large part of the season, we now start with a Red Bull on top here in Bahrain. And as I was talking there, WOR Frazier slotted in P5. I think next to sit a lap is going to be not Tommy XXC. Coming around.
Yeah, it will be Tommy.
But of course, we do have a number of new drivers here in Group 1. Some names you might recognize, of course, Batham, Ickel, Tommy XXC, AMS Tano, who also goes by Yuki. You might hear him referred to Zayek, and then Rudy, all returning drivers. But for everybody else, this is going to be their first time, at least for most of them, driving full-time here in LSR. Of course, we had a practice session last week in Brazil to give you a little bit of a sneak into what that competition is going to look like. But of course, still a lot to find out. And Bahrain can be a fairly challenging circuit, especially to kind of get hooked up correctly with the kind of difference between, you of course have the number of rather long straights, as actually that's a Mercedes Aston Martin spun out at the final corner.
Yeah, I don't... There's also a Mercedes right next to it.
As I believe Ickel's run out of fuel. As Ickel and Sabi made contact there, trying to get by each other. I think they're both out of fuel. But they're trundling back to the pit lane. But I think Ickel and Sabi just received 5-place grid drops.
Yeah,
they did.
Very interesting to see what happens there between the two drivers.
That's definitely a strange incident there. But of course, Ickel now would be sitting 9th and Sabi down in 12th. So definitely a big drop for them. I'm curious for sure to see how exactly that came about.
Yeah, some big drops for them, and some that they would not really like to.
Of course, we do have a number of drivers on outlaps, or actually just 3 drivers on outlaps for either their first or second lap. So Jinx in the Aston Martin already out for a second lap, and then Bats and Raul Ruiz as well looking to get ready to go. And of course, Tano's going to dive into the pit lane there. He currently sits 5th on that 128.7, which I believe was right about the pole time yesterday, so already we're at about 6/10 quicker than we were yesterday afternoon. Of course, we can jump on board with Raul, who's going to be, I believe, the first to try and set a second lap. Of course, got that long blast down the pit straight. Got a break right at the starting of the curb on the left. And of course, got a very kind of challenging chicane here of 2 and 3. Want to attack that curb as much as possible without attacking it too much and causing yourself to spin. Of course, turn 4, wanting to use all the track possible, as Raul is coming up to a little bit of traffic here. But definitely going to be interesting to see as he makes its way and actually invalidates there. So Raul still going to sit 16th.
So just some information on the session. We are going to restart it, by the way.
Good to know. So we will have a brief break after this qualifying session. If you are joining us, just get the lobby set back up. But then, of course, we'll be getting right back underway with the full race here in Bahrain. But just, definitely probably a strange issue with that bug. It did look like Ickel and Sabi dodged each other, and potentially was just very minor contact that resulted in that grid penalty. So we are going to have those grid penalties removed, just so that way they are accounted for. I believe, of course, we got a number of drivers on outlaps. I believe that's plus. Maybe one of the few on a flyer, Jinx as well.
Yeah, Jinx
and he's up
6 temps up on his
through
lap
those
time.
first 2 sectors, and good enough for second quickest. Just about 600 slower than Tails. So the Aston sitting in P2. That's a very solid time there for Jinx. Bats, meanwhile, in the second Williams goes P9, so a good showing there from him. Let's see, is there anybody else coming to the line? We have Jordan coming to the line, I believe, just starting a lap. So I believe it'll be Emre. I believe Emre Altunis will be the first car of this next pack to go ahead and set a lap, and he's up just over 2/10 going through Sector 2.
It's not going to push him up a position at the moment by the looks of it, but if he can gain another 2 temps here, he could possibly be up into the top 10.
So here he comes down the pit straight. Of course, DRS going to be open there and to the line. He actually gains half a second at the end, so potentially just gaining a lot of time out of those final couple of corners. Not lap time, of course, good enough for ninth. So up into the top 10, and very comfortable there for the Ferrari. For people behind him, Artem, I am showing a purple middle sector for the Mercedes, who currently sits 14th. Of course, here he comes to the final sector now. Of course, his teammate of Ickel currently sits P5. And of course, we're going to take a second to remove that grid penalty that he earlier, and that's well clear to the top. So that's into the 120 heroes from Artem. So very, very quick there from the Mercedes.
Very, very nice lap from him. I think we'll have, we do have enough time for another lap. So this will be quite interesting to see what kind of lap times people can come out with now, as Tails is also out on his flying lap now. So we'll see what he can do.
We're trying to utilize all the track on the outside there at turn 4. Crosses that first timing marker. It does seem that he has backed off. He's a couple seconds down to where he had that last lap. Actually, no, he is just 200ths behind Artem, so he did improve on his previous lap, because he was in the 128 ones. But of course, we have our second driver up Tails into the 128 zeros, but still only good enough for P2.
Very, very close then. Who's about to finish the lap? Ickel comes in.
I believe Sabi is coming through the final pair of corners now. Of course, can he jump up and join his teammate, Jinx, there on the second row? Not quite good enough. He'll put the thumb there in that Williams and an Aston Martin sandwich. Is that lap time good enough for P5? But of course, 3.5 tenths off that pole time as everybody diving into the pit lane.
Yeah, he's coming into the pit lane. He was quicker on his lap time as well, so I wonder if he felt he made a little bit of a mistake, or... But I think it's that time where everyone's coming in just to make sure they have that time to get out and get that last lap in.
Yep, leaves Zayek and the Alfa Romeo on a push lap, though I don't know quite where his time's going to slot in as he hits Sector 2. He's up a quarter of a second, so good enough to jump ahead of his teammate Tommy XXC for the moment. We'll have to see if he can improve any further than that. Out of the final 2 corners now, potentially with the last shot of his qualifying session, as we just approach the 4-minute mark. That's good enough for about 6 tenths, but only good enough for one position. So the Alfa Romeo currently 13th and 14th as they swap places right there. Raul and is diving the pit lane, as I believe will Sabi and Tano. So the final runs of qualifying should get underway in just about a minute or so. So of course we're going to have a little bit of downtime here.
Yeah, someone's just come out of the pit, so it's almost time for everyone to slowly make their way on to the track. I think that was...
Yeah, so it's the Alpine of Rudy who's going to be first out. Of course, Zayek, of course, coming through, and I believe that's turns 9 and 10 there. Just finished his lap, and so he's going to be running low on both fuel and ERS. May not have enough time to come around and set an extra lap, as we do as well get Iris McLeod in the Haas joining us, so definitely good to get him in, even if it's just for a short time here in qualifying. But of course, there will be a 17-car grid for this qualifying session. Now, very tight up there at the top, James, especially between Arts and Tails. I don't know if you've got any predictions as to who exactly is going to take it, but certainly going to come down to the wire.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very close. I do have I might have my predictions on Beat the Farm getting a really good finish, because he is the reigning LSR champion for last season, and he was absolutely phenomenal towards the end of the season. So we'll have to see what he can do in the race, but I think it's going to be quite close this season.
Yeah, definitely in agreement with that, and especially if you take a look at that grid right now, the top 12 separated by under a second, and of course everybody piling out of the pit lane, and of course Rudy in the Alpine going to be the first to first of the drivers to have an attempt at setting the final lap of this qualifying session. Of course, he's going to be blasting down towards turn 1. His teammate of Jordan going to be staying out of the way, seemingly very clean through these opening turns of 1, 2, and 3. Yellow flag for an Alfa Romeo, I believe, just slowing down to get a lap started. So we'll have to keep an eye to the Tommy XXC, I believe, who will have a little bit of an eye on. Of course, Rudy with a 28.5 through that first sector, so rather solid there, and that Alpine seems very nicely under him as he makes his way into this double left of 9 and 10. Of course, hasn't had to deal. Yeah, of course, hasn't had a whole lot of traffic to start the lap, though I believe that Ferrari is going to stay out of the way. That he will.
But these next few turns and this final straight coming up, there's quite a bit of traffic, but Rudy seems to be on a good lap time.
Hopefully that traffic can all stay out of the way. Of course, coming onto the X right now.
And if he gets that cruising on this Aston Martin ahead of him, the Aston
stay there. Out of the way. The Aston stays on the racing line, and that's a big wreck. That was Sabi and Rudy. What happened there? Sabi just didn't move, and Rudy just went right into the back of him. So big big incident there. I don't know. Definitely interesting to see the thought process there. Of course, that means Rudy is going to start in at least 16th. Because you have Tommy just starting a lap, so he'll be the first. Jinx, meanwhile, currently sitting third, is almost a tenth and a half, and of course he's coming out the final turn now. And of course, that's the end of qualifying. So Sabi and Zayek, their qualifying is done. Jinx to the line, and he'll go to the top, and that's our first time into the 127s.
Yeah, but watch out for Artem, because he is currently up on his lap time, so we'll have to wait and see what Artem can do coming up to a final corner now. It's not going
that's meanwhile down there. That's an 11th, doesn't improve. Can Artem jump up to the top? Yes, he will, and he'll go even a tenth further, and that's into the 127.8. Evil, meanwhile, fails to improve, so in third. It'll be a Mercedes next across the line. That's Ickle. He's invalidated. McLeod, meanwhile, has also invalidated, so he won't start any. Can Frazier improve at all? McLaren, he'll go from 10th up to 8th, so a solid showing there from the McLaren team. Tano, meanwhile, is invalidated, so a bunch of red laps all over the grid. We'll have to keep an eye on it. Jordan invalidated as well, as Batham goes fourth quickest, so he'll jump ahead of Evil, but of course will be just behind Tails. I believe it'll be one of the Ferraris next to cross the line. There was Raul with an issue earlier, and I believe that'll be it for qualifying. Can Tommy XXC improve at all, as he'll be the last to cross the line? Of course, he's run out of ERS, so he'll come to the line, and that will not be an improvement. So here, of course, will be your starting grid for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Of course, definitely some controversy there as people were getting that last lap started. But of course, that'll be something that will have to go to the stewards for review. Of course, it'll be Artem on pole, followed by Jinx, Tails, Batham, and Evil. It should be a very interesting race. So I don't know, James, if you have anything you want to comment on what kind of just happened at the end there, because that was definitely an interesting way to end a first qualifying session here in Group 1.
Yeah, that was definitely a odd situation. I don't understand why the Aston Martin didn't just back out of it before the corner, but we'll have to see what the stewards will say. to that instant if it's going to be flagged up, which I'm pretty sure it probably will.
Of course, we are going to have a lobby restart here, so stream is going to go down for just a couple minutes or so, just as we get the new lobby set for the moment. So yeah, just if you'll give us a few minutes, should be ready to go.
That was an interesting qualifying, so just from that, we should have an interesting race, I think.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, I don't know what to say exactly happened there at the end.
Yeah,
but yeah, definitely should be close. Yeah, Sabi just, I think, screwed up. I think he was just focused on getting his tires warmed and didn't see. Didn't see. Was it Rudy? Didn't see Sev coming. So I guess that's the explanation there. But then, of course, we don't know what happened between Ickle and Sabi earlier.
Yeah, we'll have to find out what happened. Well, from Sabi's point of view, I don't think he's even said anything. He's just, yeah, I think he's just feeling sorry for what happened.
Of course, yeah, definitely very tight up there at the top. But I think it should be very, very close. Of course, taking a look back at those qualifying results, we do get invites back, so should be getting right back underway. Of course, should be back underway shortly. Of course, for race win predictions, I think it really could go to anybody. Of course, you have the reigning champion of Batham in there. You do have Ickle kind of back there in P7, who certainly has some pace. Of course, Artem, Jinx, and Tails, of course, all starting up there in the top three, probably with the best chance. But of course, you are going to have 29 laps here. And definitely keep an eye on some drivers like, Rudy, of course, starting towards the back after that big wreck down at turn 1. And as well, it's definitely important to keep in mind, the top 12 cars were separated by less than a second. So I'd imagine that this field isn't going to spread out very quickly, so long as there aren't any further incidents. But hopefully, qualifying can be a little bit cleaner, or the race, rather, can be a little bit cleaner than the end of that qualifying session. Of course, we're getting everybody into the lobby now. There hopefully shouldn't be too long before we get back underway. Of course, if you're brand new to LSR, definitely go ahead and hit that subscribe button, just so that way you're notified whenever we go live with more league racing action. Of course, we had We have Group 3 action later on today, and that, of course, will be the season opener for them as well. Because we're lucky enough to have 4 divisions of Formula One, so 3 divisions purely for PlayStation, and then a crossplay division as well. So if you're interested in watching that, definitely make sure to subscribe. And if you're interested in racing, definitely feel free to let us know down there in the chat below, and we'd be happy to get you set up with an invite link to the Discord. Of course, I believe all of our full-time seats are filled as of right now, but of course we definitely take on all the reserve drivers that we can in a given week, so definitely be sure to go ahead and let us know if you're interested there. And also, if you could hit that like button down below, that'd be very much appreciated. Yeah, looking forward to getting back underway shortly. We've got 16 drivers in the lobby, so should be getting underway in just a few minutes.
Yeah, just waiting for one or two more people to join up. I think we've got to wait for Zayek to join up, and there he is now. So we should be good. Who's Fight Me Now for?
Not sure. He might be a little bit late. I believe he was here for the practice round. I believe he was at least here for the practice round. But we do have an extra driver, so we may be starting with 18 this time around. But I believe I've seen him in PRL a little bit. So it's certainly a driver that isn't necessarily brand new, but of course he'll be slowing in that Alpha Tower, so we'll have to keep an eye on him starting from towards the back as well.
Yeah, it should be quite an interesting 29 laps we have around Bahrain, so should be good. I mean, group 2 was quite fun yesterday as well, so
yeah. And of course, if you're looking to take a look at some past league racing action, of course, if you go right over to that LSR YouTube channel and hit live, you can see all of our past streams, not only from the start of Season 5, but of course from past seasons as well, and plenty of good races in the mix there as well. So definitely feel free to give those a look. But of course, Group 2 yesterday, definitely very interesting, and got a good mix of strategies as well. And James, you and I both were racing in that, and the strategy was very diversified across the grid.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that I saw somebody. Well, I was told somebody was on the softs. I don't know who it was, but somebody started on the softs and managed to get like 15 laps out of them, which is just crazy to think about around here.
Yep.
So,
if I'm not mistaken, that was one of the 3 leaders from yesterday's race. I know that Emery Altuntas was in that pack. I'm not sure if he was the driver that chose the softs, but of course, those softs lasted quite a while. But we saw soft to medium. We saw, I believe, a soft to hard, and most of the grid taking mediums and hards throughout the race, which should be very interesting to see what all 18 of our drivers end up deciding to do.
Should be quite a battle. So, as we do lose one driver, as Tommy has
Tommy XXC. We'll of course try to get him.
Tommy's left.
We'll of course try to get him back in before we get back underway. So hopefully shouldn't be too much longer, as we are just about right there.
People are readying up, I think.
We are readying up, so you should be getting back underway in about the next 15 seconds. Hopefully we can get Tommy XXC in before the start of the race. I think we're unlucky enough to not get. But of course, we are going to still have a little bit further to get set. And then, of course, we will get underway.
That's Tommy.
Yeah, of course, he joined in just a couple seconds there after we started loading in. So, of course, we still will have 17 drivers with Fight Me Now Bot joining up as well. So, of course, gained one and lost one there. But, of course, drivers as well can have a fresh selection of tires. So we could potentially see an even further split of strategies in this one. Waiting for Fight Me Now Bot to get ready. We're still have a little bit of time here on the grid as everybody gets their setups and strategies set. Another thing to keep in mind is certainly fuel. In the absence of a safety car, fuel might become a big issue, as Bahrain burning a little bit more fuel than normal. I know that the final spot on the podium for a P3 was decided as I believe it was the JoJo ran out of fuel just before the line and ended up in him seating a position, so definitely keep an eye on how drivers manage fuel in this race.
I know I ran out of fuel just at the final corner as well. I totally forgot about fuel, so hopefully everybody else here does not forget about their fuel.
Of course, there is going to be definitely a balancing act there. But it'll definitely be interesting to see how it works out. And of course, 3, 4, and 5 red lights. And we're underway here under the lights in Bahrain. Seems to be a good getaway there at the front as Artem takes the lead. But Thom, meanwhile, jumps up into third. He got to jump on Tails and is going to be looking down the inside for P2. Potentially a little bit of contact there between him and the Aston Martin. Yellow flags behind just for slow cars. There's also an Alfa Romeo spun in the background. But Artem retains the lead on lap 1. But Thom jumps Tails meanwhile for P3, and they're going to battle side by side through turn 4. And Tails going to try to stick it around the outside, and he is well off the track there. But Thom, I think, finally able to make that position stick, as there's also a spun Alpine. That's Jordan dropping down the order. 3 wide briefly as we make our way down into turn number 8. As wide again from Tails, he's going to lose even more positions. And so in this scramble early, Evil jumps up into 4th, Ickle up into 5th, and of course, as they come through turns 9 and 10, Artem already making a little bit of a breakaway there at the front.
Yeah, Tails not having the greatest of starts, going wide twice, losing multiple positions, but it's only lap 1, we have 28, 29 to go, and Jordan just falling way back after that unfortunate spin.
Yeah, of course, he had a spin down there at, I believe, the end of turn 4, Zayak as well, with a little bit of an at turn 1. Luckily, he doesn't seem to have received much damage, at least in terms of lap time from that. But Artem up at the front after lap 1, of course, definitely making good use of those soft compound tires early on in this race. Of course, drivers taking the softs are Artem, Raul, and Zayak all opting for those red-walled softs as Ickle and Tails battle side by side through turn 1. And Tails is going to take back 5th place. A little bit of contact there from the Red Bull and the Mercedes. They're going to be blasting down into turn 4. That's the Hassan McLeod, I think, looking for a move down the inside of Tano as well. Can he make that move stick? He will, as they make their way through turn 4, and Rudy as well, getting Rudy in the background. So a whole bunch of overtakes up and down the grid. Of course, most of the grid opting for the hard tire. Of course, those previously mentioned drivers went for the softs, and then Evil, Tails, Ickle, Sabi, and Altunas all going for the mediums off the start.
Yeah, it's definitely a difference in strategy. So we'll see what drivers can do and see what happens in the race. And Tommy had somehow left the session and just couldn't make it back in time for the session to restart.
Yeah, he
getting away.
Of course, definitely making good use of those softs as they really get lit up here on lap 2. Of course, they are likely to fall off, but how much of a gap can Artem build before those tires fall off? DRS now activated as we start lap number 3, and that gap at the front up to 2.2 seconds from Artem back to Jinx. So Artem really flying early on in this race.
Yeah, the question is, does he try and push those tyres to the limit and wear them out very fast, as I see both Ferraris battling each other? I don't want to say the Ferrari curse, but try and not crash into each other, just like 7 shells, please.
Certainly.
As Bull gets very loose.
The clean. That's, yeah, so Raul just dropped, I believe, 2 positions there, as he lost the position as well to Zayak, currently sits in 15th. And of course, got a bit of a train already forming now behind Jinx. As you can see, the Mercedes kind of pulling away little by little with that gap up to 2.5 seconds. Of course, as they're making their way through turn number 11 now.
Yeah, this is where the long game kind of starts playing out, and you kind of try and work out where everyone's slower. I would presume everyone's trying to work out where everyone's slower so you can push that little extra harder. But DRS is now available for all these drivers. So Jinx may be in a little bit of trouble as we're coming down to the line now for lap 4. DRS available for Cleaton. We'll have a look. No, just
not quite. He's going to hold back, but of course he's going to get a second shot at it in the run down to turn 4, though it seems to be a pretty good exit there from Jinx. So can the Aston Martin stay ahead as we blast down onto turn 4? That he will. So Jinx just a little bit driving well early on. Of course, to having to defend from Batham, who of course has that DRS advantage. But of course is just going to be trying to do his own thing as he leads this long train behind the Mercedes of Artem.
He does not need to worry. All he wants is these guys to have a huge battle, and the gap just opens and opens and opens. That would be a dream for the Mercedes driver.
And certainly been a dream so far, as that gap already up to 3 seconds. So that Mercedes significantly quicker, and that's spun Ferrari there, which is the yellow flag. That was Raul again, so potentially tire wear issues for the Ferrari back there. So something, whether that's tire wear or tire heat being a concern, is certainly something that is very, very interesting.
Now, Kasabi is right on the back end of Ickle here, and I don't know if he's going to have the chance in turn 1. They both have DRS, but they're not that far away from each other, as this DRS train just pulling each other along nice and smooth. As somebody dives into the pit lane, that is Zayak.
Zayak already out of the session, and that's a safety car.
Oh, he is.
That he actually crashed in the pit lane. Zayak attempted to either go into the pit to box or potentially try and make an overtake. And I think, James, you got sight of it as well, but he crashed into the pit lane divider. And so Zayak is out of this race here on as we start lap number 5, and we already get an early safety car, which could be great news for Artem, who can now potentially get that free pit stop. Though the softs really flying early on, so I don't know. So potentially, I'm just looking to stay on them and use the safety car period to extend the life of those tires.
Yeah, I'm trying to watch back the replay. Just in the background, you can see Zayak going towards the pit lane. I don't know if it was either a late call or just lost control. I'm not 100% sure, but very unfortunate for Zayak, but this could open up a load of options for everyone, as you did say.
And of course, this will tighten the field back up, so that gap that Artem started to build is now going to be neutralized. Of course, definitely going to be very interesting to see the different decisions that all of our drivers make, of course, as they're coming up to the final corners now. So what will everybody decide to do? As James right on the back of Artem, So
Yeah,
what will
Artem's got
the
very
decision
slow
here?
there. He
Artem
does
actually going
not
to fake
hit.
the pit lane entry, so he's going to stay out.
Ickle's
As I
pitted.
think will everybody. Ickle is the only driver to pit, I believe. Actually, no, there's a couple boxes behind him of Bats and Fight Me Now bot looking to get that free pit stop here early.
Ickle's put on
As
some
Jordan
new
as well going to dive into the pits.
hard tires. Fight Me Bot has got new mediums, and I think
So, and
Bats
Jordan
has
as
gone
well
into the
onto the mediums.
hards.
No, Bats has gone onto the mediums as well, as I believe he started on the hards. He is, and he is still out just ahead of that Alpha Tauri. So, of course, we're going to have a couple of laps until we get back underway. Of course, nobody with penalties just yet, but definitely worth something to keep an eye on. Definitely a couple of big winners here early on. Iris McLeod able to jump up 6 spots from his starting position down in P14. Rudy having that crash at the end of qualifying. He's grabbed 5 positions early on in the race, and then the main loser early on in this race, of course, being Jordan, who's dropped 7 spots. Ickle has dropped 5 spots, largely because of that pit stop that he took just there, being the main cause for that. And Tails, he started in 3rd. He dropped, I think, 3 or 4 positions off the start. Of course, has pulled a little bit of that back and currently sits in P5.
Just looked at the race incidents, and Fraser in P7 has already got 2 off track limits, so he's on the edge of getting a penalty. So I'll have to see if he goes off track once more, and then he will get that penalty. But we'll have to wait and see, or he can
Definitely
manage it.
Definitely worth keeping an eye on that. Of course, a couple of other drivers with track limits warnings. But of course, Fraser is going to be the only one with the equivalent of a black and white flag for track limits, because of course it's a 3 strikes system here in F1 23. Of course, the McLaren currently sitting 7th is going to have to be rather careful throughout the rest of this race.
Yeah, it's going to be, I want to say it's going to be quite nerve-wracking for him, knowing if he goes off track once more time, that's a 3-second time penalty there and then. So we'll have to see how he deals with that pressure.
Of course, should have only 1 or 2 more laps behind the safety car, so should be getting back underway shortly. Of course, the very intriguing battle will be this battle up here at the front between Artem and really everybody else behind him, because Artem really seemed to be in a league on his own early. Of course, got a quick explanation there from Zayak. Was looking to pit late on, made the move late, and just ended up locking, getting full lock and going right into the pit divider. So definitely, a bit of an uncharacteristic mistake there, I'd say, from Zayak, at least specifically, or an uncharacteristic mistake for a driver there at the pit lane entry. But of course, definitely going to be interesting to see how the rest of this race pans out.
Yeah, it's not one that you see many make. I don't think I've ever seen somebody make that. The only place I've seen mistakes happen is in Abu Dhabi or Brazil.
Spain, certainly another potential place where we could see that happen in this here game. Of course, there was a little bump on entry there, so definitely could be the potential for that to happen there.
Look at these two. Wants to put another pack. Jinx and Artem.
Jinx wants to get going right away. Of course, Artem just wants to keep him behind. So, of course, coming out of the final corner, when will Artem choose to punch it? Here we go, and so we're back underway here at the start of lap number 8. I believe Tails with a really good jump there on Evil, because the McLaren and the Red Bull are side by side, and so that's Tails getting up into P4 off the start. Here comes Jinx down the inside. They make their way through turn 1. Of course, he is going to have the outside here for turn 2, but of course, this is going to be compromised there, so Artem takes the position. And now here comes, could we see Beatom come Beaton make his way up a position? No, not quite. As Sabi as well, I believe, lost the position there to the Haas of McLeod, who's up into P7.
Tano making a move up as well on Jordan and Ickle making a move. So a few people making a few moves right after the safety car period. Tails is up into P4 now as well.
Of course, he had a great safety car restart there as Aston Martin almost playing a little there. And getting real close up the back of that Mercedes, but has those soft tires really lost that advantage because we could see just how much of a run getting on R10 down there into turn 1. It was good defending from the Mercedes driver to retain that P1, but how much longer can he hold on to it now as that gap, which was 3 seconds just before the safety car, now only down to just over 3/10.
It's going to be very interesting. Arton is the one, as we do have
no fighting for 3, then Emre. That was Emre Altunas, I believe, just getting loose there out of the ultimate corner. And now everybody going to dive pit lane. So good timing for the drivers up at the front who managed to take advantage of that. They're all going to get a free pit stop here. Of course, you got the leader of Artem opting for the hard compound tires, timing that, being very well reactively. Frazier now, of course, this race. And of course, everybody going to be coming out of the pit lane. So, Chano, Jordan, finding out about Ickle and McLeod all electing to stay out. Everybody else, meanwhile, diving into the pit lane, really trying to take advantage of this second safety car period to try and make it work.
Yeah, that was almost everyone pitting, but I think most of them opted to stay out and go longer as they are mostly on the harder compound tyre.
Also, definitely something to keep in mind is that a number of them had either boxed already or had a teammate go in just ahead of them. Of course, you had a couple of double stacks. You had the Williams double stacking. Though I believe that would have been the only team that would have gone for that double stack. But of course, Batham and Bats both electing to pit. Of course, they currently sit 9th and 14th. But for these 6 drivers up at the front, now it becomes a very interesting defensive battle, as a number of them, Frazier, McLeod, and Tano, all yet to pit. But still a lot of racing left to go, and a lot of those drivers on mediums could be really struggling for tire wear once it comes to the end of this race. So how will tire wear now play a factor?
Yeah, this is going to be a good question, and I do wonder, after the safety car restart, will the hards be better than the mediums on the restart, or can the medium runners warm their tyres up to that optimal range and get that jump on some of these drivers?
Yeah, definitely going to be a lot of things to keep an eye on. Of course, 2 cars already out of this race. As Emre just crashed out after the safety car restart. Of course, definitely would be interesting to learn what happened there. Though I wouldn't be surprised if it was just lighting up those tires a little bit too quickly, potentially. And that, of course, led to our second retirement. But, of course, plenty of racing left to go. Of course, as we're starting lap number 10, so should be getting underway in the next lap or 2. But definitely been a very interesting race here early on.
Yeah, it's been quite interesting, but we did have that DRS strain, and it was very, very close. And as we know, Group 1 is our fastest group, so anything can happen. This can be anyone's win.
And of course, right after that restart, we can see just how much on the back Jinx was on Artem. And of course, now that tire compound advantage now sits firmly with Jinx, who has opted for the medium compound tires. So the Aston Martin, I think, once again looking to potentially try and get an early move on the Mercedes.
Does he reckon these tires can last from about lap 11 to lap 29?
Certainly will be. I think it certainly is a rather big ask. Though, of course, it will depend on setup, driving style, all those things as safety car once again in this lap. So Frazier now with control, and so it'll be a McLaren to lead us over the line for the safety car restart to start lap number 11. Of course, it will be 19 laps to go as we start this next lap.
Yeah, this is going to be an important part for Fraser now to warm his tyres up as much as he can, and then he will hopefully get the better start from all these drivers and catch them napping.
Of course, a little bit fewer mind games here between the McLaren and the Haas, but very close to making contact there. And there goes Frazier, and that's a pretty good jump on the cars behind. Got about a 4/10 gap. And fighting Albon, meanwhile, side by side as they come down the pit straight. Could they make? So they're going to be too wide in turn one, and Ickel's going to be actually looking down the inside of McLeod as well. Can McLeod hold P2? Will just about. But of course, they're going to run down into turn four, and Nickel's still going to be on the track, and of course, Jordan right there as well. So looking to be almost 2x2. Jinx, meanwhile, able to overtake Tano as Artem goes very wide there into turn four in the background, so potentially contact between a couple of drivers there. But Jinx up into P6. Batham, meanwhile, also able to get Batham and Tails as well, also able to overtake Artem as Ickel spun round. So he's going to lose a number of positions there, and now he's going to be side by side with his teammate of Artem, and almost 3 wide there into turn 9. Luckily, they backed out of it, as that's another spinning Mercedes. There's more contact, as both an Alpine and Mercedes spun. Ickel got caught up in that. Rude's now fallen down there. So very chaotic here on the safety car restart, as two drivers potentially fighting for the race, who could be fighting for the race win, now sit 14th and 15th. And Frazier still holding that lead and starting to pull a little bit of a gap to those cars behind.
Yeah, from what it looks like, I think the Mercedes...
Whoa! Big crash there.
Oh.
Sorry to interrupt you there. That was a big crash for Jordan. That seemed to be a crash out of nowhere, so I don't know if Jinx popped out a little bit late to try and make a move. The Alpine being spun on the straight, as Feynman Albot as well, coming from a long ways back. That gap was about a second, but Feynman Albot now takes the lead away from Frazier. Jinx up into P3, though there was that potential incident with the Alpine of Jordan that might have to be reviewed. Was certainly an interesting thing there. You got McLeod in fourth. Batham, meanwhile, on a charge. He's going to be looking to make an overtake on the Haas into the S's. Can he get that move done? Not quite yet, but of course he's going to be still right on the back of IRS McLeod as this battle continues. Of course, he's got the pair of Red Bulls of Tails and Tano and Artem right behind him looking to make moves too.
Yeah, I would love to find out what happened there between those two drivers, but B-Tom making a move on M-Cloud and making it stick into that really annoying turn 10, I think it is, and Tails also making a move on M-Cloud as well, and Jinx up into P2 now.
Up in a P2 down there at the exit in that turn 11, 12, 15 complex. So Jinx really trying to run away now from Batham. Of course, that gap, two fighting the Albot in the lead just at about a second. Of course, Jinx with those slightly newer tires, but of course won't have the advantage of DRS down this pit straight. But it'll definitely be interesting to see how this battle continues as DRS now activated. Of course, down the order a little bit, Arno going to go side by side, and the Mercedes gets ahead rather easily. Is the Red Bull going to fight back here into turn one? No, they're going to be patient for the moment, as they currently sit 7th and 8th, and that's a spun Ferrari, I believe. That was a contact between the Ferrari of Ruiz and the Williams of Bats, and so they're going to lose a rather significant amount of time. So a lot of contact here on the safety car restart. Evil and Salby, meanwhile, going side by side, and a little bit of contact there.
I think the McLaren may have just pushed the Aston Martin of Kasabi off track, but very close racing. Oh, as Kasabi has to go off track to avoid action there.
Yeah, to avoid a little bit of contact there. Artem looking down the inside of turn 9 and 10, and that's another move. So just the same way we saw Batham make the move on McLeod. Artem does the same exact thing, and so he's going to move up in P6. So, of course, your pole sitter now going to be looking to try and fight back and rejoin that fight for the lead. But, of course, he's got a rather large gap of 2 seconds up ahead to Tails.
Yeah, he's got a 1.8 second gap, and that gap is growing ever so slightly, but yeah, let's hope he can come back and fight for it, as Tails is alongside. He didn't even need DRS to pass Fraser for P4, and that's Tails.
Of course, he's going to go a little there. Of course, Tails having to do a little bit defensive there into turn 1 to make sure Fraser didn't get a potential run back on him, as Ruiz and Bats once again swap places. But that is Tails, as I said, that is Tails up in a P4.
Jinx
yeah,
is
certainly.
now 1.1 seconds behind the leader. So I wonder. Oh, as Ruiz makes a pass.
Yeah, that guy up at the front really holding firm there at about that 1.1 second mark. So find me now, but with some good pace, as Jordan is going to dive into the pit lane and retire. As Jordan as well in the group chat voicing his discontent for that move from Jinx, so it's definitely worth giving that incident a look. But of course, definitely sad to see Jordan out of the race, and that's definitely an incident that's going to go to the stewards.
So this is something quite interesting. Fraser, who hasn't pitted yet, has now dropped down 2.1 seconds from the Red Bull of Tails, and is now right on the front end of Artem. So I wonder if his tyres are starting to drop off slowly now, because I do wonder if his pace is getting a bit too slow with them tyres.
I think certainly in comparison to some of the other drivers around him, like Artem, who's making that move down the inside into turn 1, those tires are going to be in a much worse position, as Batham as well is going to get around the outside of Tails down there at the exit of turn 3. So Batham now up into the podium positions, and we do have a lead change as well, as Jinx able to close up that gap and take the lead. Flaming Outbot going to be coming back at him, taking a peek to the inside as they go through the S's there, but not quite going to have that move on. So changing the battle for both first and third there, as Flaming Outbot actually runs really, really wide, bottoms out there on the curb on the outside. I believe that's turn number 7.
Yeah, this is quite interesting. Jinx on 6 laps old tyres, and Fight Me Now Bot on 9 laps old tyres. So that's quite interesting between the tyres. So we'll see how long these two drivers can go on for.
Of course, keep an eye on drivers like Batham and Tails there in the background, as Sabi able to get past McLeod down there in the run into turn number 11. So the Aston Martin gaining another position there. But of course, Sabi with a 3-second time penalty after having to make sure he didn't end up going into the backup. I believe it was Fraser, so getting an extra time penalty there. But of course, the number 7 Aston Martin currently sitting there in P7, so solid from him right now, as he's actually going to get really loose there on the exit and receive another 3 seconds of time penalties. Meanwhile, Tails and Batham once again swap places down into turn 1. Will Batham fight it back? Looks for the switch back there into turn 1. Then he'll be looking for the outside, and is going to be squeezed there by Tails, and they're going to be side by side in the run down into turn 4. Who's going to have the edge? Batham, of course, with the inside of the corner and with that tire advantage, and he is going to pull, I think, just about clear as they make their way into the S's now. So Batham able to defend and hold on to that P3.
There's some great defending from B-Tom and retaking that position back. And luckily enough, he was just behind Tails at that DRS detection zone. So very, very good stuff from Buffon. But this should also help Artem, but he's slowly falling back from this little pack. So I don't know whether he's just saving his tyres for a little bit later on, but we'll have to see what he can do later on in this race.
I think it'll be interesting to see how that battle continues. It definitely doesn't appear to be that the Mercedes has any damage. But of course, it shouldn't be much of an issue as Rudy out of this race. That's, I believe, a no, that's a player retirement there from the Alpine. Of course, Rudy out of this race. I'm not sure whether that was an incident due to contact there between Rudy and another driver, but of course, then Alpine is going to be retiring here on lap number 16. So that's going to be our full retirement from this race. And it's a double DNF here in the opener for the Alpine outfit.
Tails now back ahead of the farm. So now the farm trying to challenge back. He's forward back, but by 4 attempts, but I don't think he's close enough. But Fight Me Now Bot is also closing in on this lap.
Yeah, I think Fight Me Now Bot now kind of starting to go on the attack. I think he's held back a little bit over the past couple of laps because that rear light at the back of the Aston Martin is blinking quite a bit. And if you jump on board with the AlphaTauri, see that he does have a little bit of an advantage there with ERS, but of course with both cars being slower, that's going to allow Tails and the Bomb both to pull up right to the back of this fight, and we could be looking at a 4-way battle here for the lead.
This will be quite interesting as Artem gets a 3-second time penalty, so that's not good news for him, but he is 2.3 seconds ahead of Fraser.
Yes, of course, Artem.
Tails is now winning that second.
Artem just seemingly really struggling on those hard compound tires. They just seem to not really be working for that Mercedes, as he's falling off rather quickly from Betham and Artem, and it runs wide there again. So Artem really struggling on those hards, as we do have a battle for the lead here. Fight Me Now Bot going to go down the inside of Jinx into turn 1 and is going to take that position. Of course, he is still going to have to defend now into turn number 4, not only from the Aston Martin, but potentially from the Red Bull behind him. But he does have enough pace there to hold on to that lead, so it'll still be Fight Me Now Bot leading the way here on lap number 18.
Yeah, this is getting very interesting. We now have 4 people who could take the lead, but as Jinx gets his 3-second time penalty for track warnings, so that is his 3 warnings gone, and that's not good news for this battle for him at all. I think he'll be kind of frustrated with that.
Certainly would be, and so will that translate into potentially being a little bit more aggressive now that he knows he has to make up those 3 seconds. Not quite right the second, and the Aston Martin, of course, going to have to hold firm in turn 11. Can't really risk too much either, because of course he does have Tails and Betham right behind him looking to take that position. His Tails actually going to have a look down the inside there. They're not quite going to have a move just yet.
Yeah, it's Tails is looking at. He's looking very quick, this man, and I think he's looking for that win. He knows he could probably get this win.
There's still a lot of laps left to go, but of course Jinx is going to be looking down the inside into turn 1, so he is going to take Find Me Now Bot. Is the AlphaTauri now going to be at risk from the Aston Martin? That was a rear lock there from the AlphaTauri, and then that also compromised Tails. Because if you could see that little bit of a twitch there from the AlphaTauri, that is going to compromise them rather significantly, and it also allowed Betham to get past. So Betham now up into P3.
Yeah, and that's really helped beat Betham because he's stayed there. He's not been that much quicker than these lot, but he's always been around these lot. So I wonder if he's just slowly just watching this battle take its time and just let everyone else waste their tires.
Of course, definitely worth a lot of thought here. Of course, Find Me Now Bot in second after starting down in P17, so at the back of the grid. So he's had a last to a fight for the lead, battle for last to a battle for the lead. So great jumps here from Fight Me Now Bot. A couple other big gainers at just about the 2/3 mark. Ruiz up 6. Fight Me Now Bot going very defensive, really trying to break that toe. But yeah, Ruiz down there in P10, up 6 spots, and Bats as well has had a really solid race. He's up 4 spots.
Beaton being attacked by Tails now, and Beaton does have DRS, so it's kind of helping him out. But can Tails just...
Here's the Red Bull down the
one?
inside. Terry Ricardo has laid on the brakes. Is he still going to have a good enough exit there to make that move stick? Contact between the Red Bull and the Williams. And I think on the exit here, as they run down into turn 4, it is going to still be the edge. So Batham with just about enough to stay out ahead of Tails. But, you know, very aggressive there from the Red Bull driver. Really looking to get that move done. And Batham able to defend very, very nicely. So definitely a little bit of contact there between both drivers, but overall driving very, very good.
Not a lot of contact, but that's kind of what we want with these drivers racing wheel to wheel, and this is what racing is. And this is getting quite intense with these 4 battling it out.
Jinx not quite able to make that getaway that he's really hoping on. Artem is as well, closing up a little bit. Of course, he also has that 3-second time penalty that's worth taking a look at. Of course, Raul Ruiz, that's actually Raul Ruiz out of the race, and once again we get another safety car. I think he spun there on the exit, but he's out of the race, and so that'll be safety car number 3. As that Ferrari, I think, definitely a strange spot. As Evil receiving a drive-through penalty for speeding their safety car, I think his Delta just kind of popped up. And so Evil with a drive-through penalty, but yeah, I think Raul Ruiz potentially just getting a bit hot on the throttle. A number of drivers diving into pit lane.
This is really going to upset people with 3-second time penalties. And I do wonder, can this help people like Ickle, Tano, Beats, and maybe Clouds, because he did start losing quite a lot of positions towards the start of that safety car restart.
I think it certainly helps them because they are now into the fight. So, of course, plenty of time left to try and make moves. Of course, the only driver who's without a drive-through, who is going to be on mediums, is Fight Me Now bot. So potentially keep an eye on the Alpha Tauri in the closing stages of this race. But we'll have to see how well these soft tires last when they're pushed in anger.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the comments. Why did Jinx take Jordan out? He was trying to bump draft, but in this game, that can make people spin on certain straight. If it was that, then yeah, that might be kind of a penalty coming his way, I would presume, because Jordan is out of this race, unfortunate for him.
Yeah, you know, I know bump drafting works in Gran Turismo, but I think especially trying to do that here in the Formula 1 game, definitely not something that is going to be recommended, and if that was his intent, that may be a reason to bring down a further penalty.
1 second. Fight Me Now bot, I've just realised, is on the medium compound tyres.
Yeah.
Whereas
yeah, so definitely going to be...
everyone else is on the softs.
That is going to be something very interesting to keep an eye on. Of course, he will have that tire compound disadvantage, but back on, after the first safety car restart back on, I believe it was lap number 7, we did have a very interesting situation where Jinx on the soft compound tires didn't really have that, or sorry, Artem, meanwhile, rather, on the soft tires, really didn't have that much of an advantage, if any, over Jinx, who's right behind him on the hard. So could the mediums be the right way to go, as we should be getting back underway with 7 laps to go?
I would say the softs are going to be the most likely tyre for everyone to go on, as it is the quicker tyre of the 3 compounds we are putting here today. But it's very interesting to see that from Artem and the softs, I don't know, it's very confusing, but we'll have to wait and see what happens to Fight Now.
Yeah, so definitely keep an eye on that Alpha Tauri as this race continues. Of course, Batham and Batham Tails definitely still in this fight, and probably now, at least for drivers on that optimal tire, potentially looking like favorites to win the opening round here. Just remember, Jinx has that 3-second time penalty for track limits. So, of course, the Aston Martin really has to pull out a gap to the cars behind if he wants any chance of holding on to that win. That, with 7 laps to go, and some of the drivers in this field, it's certainly going to be very, very challenging.
Yeah, you've got people like Beatom, Artem, Tails fighting now, but Zabitano, everyone almost, I want to say, is going to be up there fighting for this P1. They know that some people do have penalties and possible penalties coming their way, so this could be anyone's win.
Of course, safety car in this lap, so we go from one Aston Martin leading the way to another. This is, of course, Jinx now with control of the field. And he's looking to get underway rather quickly. We're already into the final couple of corners. Of course, he's probably going to have to hold up here for a couple seconds. And here we go. Jinx underway. He did have his engine cut there as he went a little bit too soon. That's going to allow everybody behind him to have a run here into turn 1. Here comes Finally Nowbot down the inside. The thumb the outside, 3 wide for the lead into turn 1, and it's Finally Nowbot who takes the lead of the Bahrain Grand Prix. Contact there with Bithon behind, who tries to jump up into P2. He's going to make that move stick on Jinx just about, but Finally Nowbot getting a much better jump. Frazier with a 3-second time penalty there in the background as the cars fan out, but Jinx dropping 2 places off the start as he just went that little bit too soon. Finally Nowbot actually getting 5 seconds for ignoring yellow flags. So that's certainly going to be something for review. But it is Bithon now then in the net lead of this race. So I think Finally Nowbot potentially jumping the gun even a little bit too soon.
Yeah, that was, even if it was, that was a great start from Finally Nowbot and not the greatest of starts from Jinx. As you said, he had that engine cut as the safety car still did not peel in to the pit lane. I presume he just really wanted to get underway and get away from everybody else.
As we make our way through Sector 2 now, Jinx is going to be taking a look down the inside of Bithon, but not quite going to make that move stick. Of course, that asked me, actually, that was Sabi going pretty much straight on, and once again, car. I don't know if you caught it in the background, but that Aston Martin just went basically straight on back at turn 13. I don't know what happened there, but of course there's another retirement and another safety car.
No, I did not. I just went on board with the Aston Martin of Jinx, and Jinx is pitted here.
That certainly surprised. Mats and Ickel as well jumping into the pit lane. So potentially was